Have you ever felt a deep emotion, a fear, a connection, a sadness that seemed to have no reason, something you could not explain, with memories from this life, something that lingered, like an echo from a place you could not name? What if that emotion, that echo, was not just yours, but part of a story your soul has carried for lifetimes? In this video, we are not going to talk about theories or beliefs or things that require blind faith. We are going to talk about experiences, real ones, about what truly changes when you remember who you have been. You will discover 5 powerful and often hidden benefits of past life regression, benefits that go far beyond curiosity or entertainment. These are shifts that can heal your heart, clarify your path, and reconnect you with a deeper, truer version of yourself. This is not about escaping the present. It is about understanding it with more depth and more compassion than ever before. Years ago, I met a man who had always carried a deep fear of water. He had never drowned, never had a bad experience in the ocean, but even looking at waves made his chest tighten and his breath disappear. He could not explain it. Doctors called it anxiety. Friends told him to face his fear, but none of it helped until one day he sat down, closed his eyes, and went inward. What he found was a memory from a life long ago on a ship that never made it home. It was not a dream. It was not a fantasy. It was a feeling, a knowing, a recognition that went beyond logic. And when he returned, he was different. The fear did not vanish overnight, but it softened. It no longer controlled him, because now he understood where it came from. And in that understanding, he began to heal. There are many stories like this, quiet, unassuming, but powerful, because when you start to remember what your soul already knows, your life begins to shift in ways you never expected. So if you have ever wondered what past life regression could truly offer, beyond just images and memories, this video is for you. Let us begin. Some feelings you cannot trace. They live in your chest, in your stomach, in the way your hands shake, even when your mind tells you there is no reason to be afraid. You feel them when you wake from certain dreams, when you pass by a stranger and your heart skips, or when a sound, a place, a moment brings tears for no reason you can explain. That was how it began for me, not with a crisis, but with a quiet ache, a sadness I could not name, a weight I had carried for so long. I thought it was just part of who I was. I tried to trace it through this life. I asked myself, was it my childhood? Was it something someone said? Was it something I forgot? But no memory came, only the feeling remained. So one day, with a soft breath and an open heart, I decided to look deeper. I went into a past life regression session with no expectations, no demands, just a single question in my heart. Where does this pain come from? What I saw was not dramatic, not a battlefield, not a tragedy. It was a small wooden room, a woman sitting by a window, waiting year after year for someone who never came back. And that woman was me. The moment I saw her, felt her breath, touched her grief, something inside me cracked open. I understood that the sadness I carried was not from this life, but from another one. A grief left unspoken, unfinished, unhealed. After that day, something shifted. The sadness did not vanish, but it softened. It stopped asking for my attention every morning, because now it had been seen, acknowledged, witnessed. Sometimes that is all a wound needs, to be remembered, to be held, to be honored. You see, past life regression does not always give you epic stories. Sometimes it gives you a single thread that explains the tangle in your heart. A man I once spoke to had spent years afraid of heights, terrified of balconies, never understanding why. In regression, he found himself falling from a tall tower, pushed by someone he once trusted, And while he could not prove it, he no longer needed to, because the fear made sense. And once it made sense, he began to heal. A small lesson I want to share. Emotional healing is not always about fixing. It is often about remembering and allowing. When your pain has no name, it becomes your identity. But when it has a story, it becomes something you can hold, something you can gently release. And so we begin to understand that the soul remembers more than the mind does. It carries echoes of everything it has survived. And when we are ready, those echoes come forward, not to haunt us, but to free us. In the next part of our journey, we will go even deeper into the hidden fears and phobias, the ones that seem to appear from nowhere, but are rooted in somewhere very old. Because sometimes what we fear is not what is in front of us, but what we once could not escape. Let us continue. There are fears you can explain. You fell once, you were betrayed, you were hurt, and the body remembers. But then there are the other fears, the ones that come without a story. A fear of fire when you have never been burned, a fear of flying when you have never left the ground, a fear of being seen even when no one is watching. Where do those come from? And why do they feel so real, so immediate, so deeply rooted? For years, I carried a fear of confined spaces. Elevators, trains, even crowded rooms made my chest tighten, as if the air had been stolen. I told myself it was anxiety. I practiced breathing techniques. I pushed through it with willpower, but the fear never left. It just waited, quietly, until I stopped trying to fight it and chose to listen instead. In a regression, I found myself in darkness, not metaphorical, but real. Stone walls, a locked space, and the overwhelming sense that I had been forgotten, buried alive in a place and time I could not name. When I came back, I sat in silence, not with fear, but with understanding. It was not this life that gave me this terror. It was a memory, a survival, a wound still echoing through time. From that moment on, the fear began to shift, not because I fought it, but because I saw it. It no longer controlled me, because it was no longer a mystery. And that is the gift. When we bring light to what has been hidden, it begins to dissolve on its own. I have seen this happen again and again. A woman with an unshakable fear of drowning found herself reliving a shipwreck in another century. A man who feared knives remembered dying by one in a war he had never studied, but described in perfect detail. None of these fears made sense until they were remembered. And once they softened and lost their grip. A small lesson I carry: fear grows strongest in the places we refuse to look. But when we face fear, not with force, but with presence, it becomes a teacher, not something to run from, but something to listen to. Past life regression does not erase fear. It rewrites your relationship with it. From enemy to messenger, from weight to wisdom. Now that we have explored how regression can unlock emotional healing and dissolve deep-rooted fear, it is time to look at something even more intimate: our relationships. Because sometimes the conflicts we cannot resolve, the connections we cannot explain, are not just part of this life. They are part of a longer story, still unfolding through us. Let us continue. Have you ever met someone and felt like you had known them forever? Even if it was the first time you heard their name. Or maybe you keep finding yourself in the same kind of relationship. Same dynamic, same pain, different faces. No matter how much you grow, how far you run, you keep attracting the same story, like a song your soul cannot stop playing. Why? There was a time I believed that patterns in relationships were just habits, things we learned from childhood or picked up along the way. But then I met her. We had only spoken once, a short conversation, nothing deep, but the connection was instant and overwhelming. It felt beautiful and terrifying. as if my heart remembered something my mind had no words for. I began to dream of her, not as she was, but in different forms, in different times. And I started to wonder, is it possible that our connection did not begin here, but long before? I entered a regression, not looking for her, but for the root of that emotion. What I saw was another life, a promise made, a loss that was never grieved, a bond that had no closure. When I returned, I cried, not out of sadness, but out of relief, because finally something made sense. The intensity, the confusion, the pull, it was not random. It was remembrance. Past life regression often reveals that the people in our lives have walked with us before, sometimes as family, sometimes as lovers, sometimes as those who hurt us or whom we have hurt, and the patterns we keep repeating, the struggles we cannot explain, are not punishments. They are unfinished stories waiting to be healed. I remember another story, a man who kept falling in love with people who abandoned him. He thought he was unlucky. He thought he was broken. But in regression, he saw himself walking away from someone he once loved deeply. In another life, that memory broke his heart and opened it. He forgave himself, and something in him changed. In this life, he stopped chasing people who could not stay and started choosing those who could. A small lesson I've learned: not all healing happens in conversation. Some of it happens in silence, in vision, in the quiet recognition that we have loved and lost and returned to love again. Our relationships are not random collisions. They are echoes. They are mirrors. They are invitations to see ourselves more clearly, to choose differently, to love more freely. And when we begin to understand our patterns, not as problems, but as portals, everything shifts. We stop blaming. We start listening. We soften. And in that softening, we begin to rewrite the story, not just for ourselves, but for every version of us who ever reached for love and did not yet know how to hold it. Now that we have explored how past life regression can bring healing to our emotional world and to the people we share it with, let us look deeper still into the question that haunts so many of us, especially in quiet moments. Why am I here? What am I meant to do? Because sometimes the answer to your life purpose lies not in where you are going, but in where you have already been. Let us continue. Some questions do not arrive with noise. They do not shout or demand an answer. They live quietly in the background of your life. Why am I here? What am I really meant to do? Is there something I was born to become, but forgot along the way? If you have ever felt that question rise in your chest, not as anxiety, but as longing, then you already know how powerful that feeling can be. I spent years trying to answer it with logic, career tests, books, advice from people who meant well, but could never see the map that lived inside me. I tried chasing success. I tried following passion. I tried being useful, but something always felt misaligned, like I was walking in shoes made for someone else. Until one day, in a moment of quiet, I realized I had been asking the wrong part of me. So I turned inward, not with force, but with permission. And I asked, where has my soul been? What has it always longed for? During regression, I saw myself in another life, teaching not in classrooms, but in temples, in small circles, with people who had nothing, but who listened with everything. And I felt something unlock. It was not about the specific role. It was about the rhythm, the feeling, the essence, helping others remember who they are by remembering who I was. That clarity did not arrive as a plan. It arrived as peace. Many people discover their life purpose, not by looking ahead, but by looking behind, by understanding the recurring themes across lifetimes. The healer who keeps becoming a nurse, the writer who never feels alive unless they are creating, the quiet one who always finds themselves guiding others. These are not accidents. They are soul imprints, threads that weave through lifetimes, calling us forward. One woman I met always felt guilty for wanting to travel. She thought she was avoiding responsibility. But in regression, she saw herself as a messenger, a bridge between communities, someone whose life's purpose was to carry stories across borders. When she returned, her guilt melted into clarity. She was not running away. She was answering a call older than memory. A small lesson I've learned: purpose is not always a job. It is a way of being. It is the expression of your soul's oldest truth. In the body, you now live. And when you align with that, not only do you feel more alive, you stop seeking approval. You begin living from within. So if you are searching for purpose, know this: it is not lost. It is simply waiting for you to remember the pattern that has always been yours to follow. Sometimes the clearest direction forward is the one your soul has already walked. Again and again, in the next part of our journey, we will look at how this remembering does more than give you clarity. It can open up your intuition, sharpen your inner compass, and reconnect you with the one guide who never leaves your side, yourself. Let us continue.